are you?
I'm Shakil Khan, head of special projects at Path.
That's what I meant, like you're head of special projects of Path. What does this mean?
So I'm the guy who gets on a plane. If you look at most CEOs these days, time is a precious commodity. A CEO would like to be everywhere around the world, and he obviously cannot be everywhere around the world. So I'm the guy who gets sent from Timbuktu to Tibet to go and fix problems.
So that's what I wanted to do with you, is have this conversation about you as a hidden person. We rarely hear about the ones in the background, and you're less and less in the background, but we'll talk about this. But let's start. So you were doing this for Daniel Ek at Spotify.
Yeah. So I met Daniel when Daniel was 23 years old, very early in the Spotify journey, and decided to start helping him out. And he realized this was going to be a global company, and he needed somebody to be on a plane and supporting him around the world. So basically, that's what I did.
But you never appeared, basically.
No, I was behind the scenes. So this is a rare occurrence. I don't come out on stage often.
That's what we like. So head of special projects of Spotify, let's talk about that first. What people don't know generally is you're actually the one who, correct me if I'm wrong, connected Daniel Ek to Sean Parker.
Yeah. So Sean was at some barbecue in New York, and I'd given a number of people premium accounts way before we launched in the USA. He was pretty blown away by it. Me and Sean go into some dialogue, and he'd send me these really, really long emails, which I couldn't understand. And I'm like, Daniel, there's this guy called Sean Parker, keeps on talking about Napster and stuff. And I honestly didn't know who Sean Parker was. I introduced him to Daniel, and the rest is history. So Sean went on to introduce him to Zuckerberg. They invested, and then we can see where we are now, 4 years down the line.
Because the story that we got from Sean is that he emailed Daniel to invest in Spotify. So
well, that may be a different story out there.
Well, that's why you're hidden in the background. So, and you took Spotify, so you helped taking Spotify from European.
Yeah, so it was interesting. Spotify obviously started in Sweden, a very small company. I helped set up the UK office. And then what I really spent a lot of time doing was being the advance forward team. So before we would go and launch into a market in the USA, 2 years before, I remember there was this journey. Does Spotify launch? Does it not launch? Will it launch? Will it not launch? I was on the ground there making sure all the influencers, all the bloggers, all the journalists, the right people knew about it. So when we did arrive, we did it with a bang rather than arriving and go, here, we're Spotify, nobody knows about us. But it was a much longer journey than I expected due to various licensing issues.
Before we go into Path, I'd like to stay on this a little, because here is one of the only stories of a European startup based originally in Stockholm, right?
Yeah.
That takes over the world and really becomes international, and you've played a huge role in that. So how do we do that? Entrepreneurs in Europe. How do you not stay Swedish or French or Spanish or?
So I think Spotify being Swedish was an advantage, but being any European company is a huge advantage, because from day one, you have to bat globally. I mean, Sweden's got a population of 9 million people. You get 10% of the population. It's 1 million people. It's smaller than a suburb in London, for an example. And so you have to think globally. And most importantly, living in Europe, you also realize there is not what I call Silicon Valley and international. France is very different to Germany. Germany is very different to Austria. Austria is very different to UK. So you have to think, how do you enter those markets from a local perspective from day one? Unfortunately,
you were not on day one, right?
No.
Spotify wasn't global.
That was due to a licensing reason. We did it country by country.
Right.
But for American companies, it's very different. So what tends to happen is you launch the product in the USA, and it's a typical scenario, and you can't knock them for it. But 2 or 3 years later, someone wakes up going, we need to focus on international. So what do? They get somebody who's a Stanford grad, came and spent one summer in London going, okay, you're going to run head of international, move to London, into an English-speaking country.
Right.
That isn't the right way to do it, because London is very close to USA, very different than the French market. So I've always taken a local approach, and I myself have lived in various countries around the world, and I wouldn't say I'm an expert, because that's, kind of giving the wrong impression. I am just slightly less ignorant than everyone else due to where I travel and the languages I speak, so, and the cultures I see.
So what's your advice for your entrepreneurs in Europe to build a global success such as Spotify? Do you advise them to think global, try to...
I think from day one, you have to think global.
But it's expensive to, do your site or your app in 5 languages or 10.
It is, but if you look at, especially, if we're talking mobile, there is no longer any barriers. The day you upload your app to the Android store or to the Apple store, you can choose what countries you want to go in. So path is different to Spotify. And Spotify, we'd sit there, go, right, next week we launch Denmark, or we launch Germany, or we launch France. Path, what happens is, I get a phone call from Dave Morin, who's the co-founder and CEO, says, hey, Shaq, do you want to explain to me what just took place in Malaysia? We had a 40x increase over the last 48 hours. The difference with someone like myself, or the approach that we take is, my answer is, Dave, unfortunately, I don't know, but I'll be in Kuala Lumpur in 48 hours, and in 72 hours, you'll have an answer. So you just have to have this global mindset, because this battle is no longer going to be won in the Mission District of San Francisco. It's going to be won on the front lines of Tokyo, Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, Rio de Janeiro, Buenos Aires. So the world's a playground, and we need to play globally.
It's a playground, yet some very good entrepreneurs manage to do very successful clones that become really big before the company that comes into that market, even knows about it, right?
Yeah, so it happens, there's clones everywhere, and you can spend your time focusing on clones, or you can spend your time focusing on product. So take Path, for example. We know there's a number of people who are probably cloning that.
Oh, yeah?
But what are they cloning, right? They're cloning what was already out there. They're not cloning the vision that the team has or the next reiteration of the product. And if all you're ever doing is cloning, are you really moving the needle anywhere? Probably not. Some people make great money out of it. It's a great business case.
They make a lot of money out of some of them.
It's not for me. So,
why did you leave Spotify? It's a pre-IPO company. That's how I read it. That is likely to become $5-10 billion plus. I wish for Daniel and the team. Yeah. I think the most successful, the largest success of Europe in technology, probably with Rovio, Angry Birds. And
fingers crossed.
Right. So why did you leave? I mean, it's incredible.
So before Spotify, I've done 5 startups. My last startup was sold to AOL, and this is the period where I met Daniel and got involved. So what a lot of people also don't know, I invested in the company. Very, very early invested.
So you're already rich, and you still have a lot of shares of Spotify. That's what you mean?
You could say that, but that's not the whole story. So I spent 4 years, and we took it from a very early startup. Where we'd go to people, and I'd go, "Hey, I'm from Spotify," and they'd go, "Spot who?" People, I'm assuming, thought we were running some cosmetic cream wholesaling business. We took that. We did country by country, UK, 11 countries or 13 countries now, one by one. And you used to get the same buzz every time. You'd go in, you'd be the underdog. And I've always liked being the underdog, fighting the battle and fighting for the greater good of the company. I was actively involved in the USA launch, and that went tremendously well. And then spent a lot of time. This is where I actually got to meet Dave Morin at Facebook. Dave was at Facebook.
If you stay on the US launch of Spotify, then we move to Path. I know you want to talk about Path. But I remember Daniel telling me at Le Web in Paris that it was an advantage for them to be a European company because all the US equivalent of Spotify kind of failed with all the music labels and everybody trying to stop them, while you were in Europe. Yeah. And you came after. So
we were in Europe, but the difference was we were operating in Europe, and me and a few of the team, we were actually on the ground in USA prepping the launch. So, it was kind of done in a stealth mode, and it worked out. But to finish what you asked, why did I leave Spotify? If you look to where we are in 2012 or 2011, the company has over 600 employees. There are 14 offices. I think there's over, tens of millions of users out there, and I didn't have the buzz. When you're walking in, walking to Starbucks, everyone's using it. Part of me felt that success, okay, we arrived, but part of me was like, I longed for those butterflies in the stomach, and there are many entrepreneurs here, they will surely understand what I mean. There's a certain feeling about being an underdog where you're challenging yourself and you're pushing the boundaries. When you're the top dog, the natural sense is to get complacent, and I needed to decide what I want to do next. And I spend a lot of time in Africa with an organization called Charity Water, so I spent some time doing that, and then...
And Scott is speaking in Paris, so...
And then Path came along.
So, Path, are you... I still have troubles to say that with my great French accent, but that's okay. You forgive me, I hope. It's the same strategy as Spotify. You're trying to get basically Sean Parker use it and tell everyone and all his friends to use it.
Well, the thing
Celebrities, I mean.
Sean Parker on Path is a 31-year-old guy called Sean. So the celebrity element in itself doesn't work in the current product. But what we do need is for a way to be able to connect with millions and millions of people. So, we're already from day one an international company. There is no licensing restriction. The day the product was launched or the relaunch, which took place in December, we have users, I would probably say 98% of the countries in the world. Yesterday, 3 people joined from Kazakhstan, and I was very interested to know how they got to hear about it. But you can't control that. So what you just need to do is grow that, right? It's organic growth for us.
Who uses Path? Path?
Path.
Path?
Path.
And I'm in London, which is even more...
Well, the Americans call it Path, so we call it Path.
Okay. Why would I put my picture that I take of you, like, right now on Path versus Instagram? Kevin was here yesterday versus Facebook or Twitter directly, or versus Instagram posting into Facebook or Path now posting. It's like...
So, I mean, you can if we talk about
push everywhere,
Facebook versus Path from a start, think of the scenario of Facebook built the cities, we built the homes. The privacy element, the user base is much smaller, the number of friends are much smaller, and people tend to share a lot more private moments. Path is an online journal, social network for your family and very close friends. The average number of friends on Path is 40 friends, just under, maybe 39, 40 friends. Facebook is a lot more, and there are certain people who use it on their own as a diary. Most people are actively engaged, and what they find is there are certain moments they want to keep private with their very close friends and family, and there are certain moments that they would like to share on the broader network. So we have the sharing capability. You can share on Facebook, you can share on Twitter. So I don't think that comparison, it's different use cases for people. Some people think, Facebook has got way too many friends. Is it a second chance of Facebook? I can't make that comment. But the user will decide.
You're basically building a Facebook competitor. That's what you're doing.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. We're building something on a mobile from the ground up with the focus on mobile. Facebook was never built with the thought process of mobile, how big mobile was going to be. So
you could say you're building the mobile app that Facebook should have?
I honestly couldn't comment on that, so I really couldn't comment on that. Yeah, I'm a Facebook user, I'm a Twitter user, and I'm a Path user, an Instagram user.
I bet our friends at Facebook would say, but you have private groups on Facebook. I can use Facebook as I can use Path, right?
Do you have private groups? I'm not sure. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how many people have created groups or how many people have created...
How many people use private groups on Facebook? About half?
I think it's less than half.
We'll take some questions from a room. How about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Users, who has a question? Please raise your hand if you have a question. And in the meantime, I ask you one more. How many users do you have?
Over 3 million.
You said that last time already.
When?
Dave said that recently, right?
No, that was like 2 weeks ago we announced that we were
really?
hitting 3 million users. We don't have the 10 million user growth in a week. Ours is an organic growth, but it's deeply engaged users.
We have one here. And you're not interested in having hundreds of millions of users?
I'm sure we'd be very interested, but we don't want to get there without the engagement level being there. We would much rather do the right type of engagement and the right type of user who's actively using.
One active user.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a couple of examples. There are 5 moments being shared per second, so there's 3.5 million, just under 3.5 million moments being shared per week. And the company's still growing, right? So it's very early stage. There's 40 people, so it's organic growth, but it's a great journey. I'm enjoying it very much, and let's see what the future holds.
I think it's an interesting thing to launch a new social network. Exactly, I enjoy it myself. I have to say, I use it every day. No, go. Keep talking.
Hello. Okay. A few things. So I like Path, and I have friends that like
Path.
I'm from New York, so Path, right? So Path. I like Path, but there are a few things that I would like to see. So an Instagram integration, right? an auto
So you want your
select
picture to post to Instagram from Path
from Path.
into Facebook then, and
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be cool. An auto select of the sharing, so I always forget to press the 4. So Facebook, Foursquare, Tumblr, and a lot of my friends have that. So I end up having to go back when I do want to share out. And then, because I own a marketing agency, I know that you're saying it's more of a private network. I really see it as almost like a distribution tool, and it has that possibility because no other tool without like a lot of configuration can post as many places, I think, as Path. So would you ever sort of, let it transform into something that's not so focused around private and start looking, at adding more profiles and making it kind of this seamless, and because it's music, it's, place, it's social media. So, I mean, it really does have that potential for marketing.
Yeah. So I think you had a number of questions. There's Instagram integration and various other network integration. We get asked this a lot by people, and we have to choose what people really want. At the moment, we have Twitter, Facebook, Foursquare, and Tumblr. I can't say it will never happen to Instagram, but it isn't on the immediate roadmap. So I would like to think that answered that question. The second question was the sharing. You forget to share. I myself occasionally forget to share because the design is very beautiful, and I often joke, like, did we make these invisible? And so we offer it as an option. That isn't the fundamental goal that we have, which leads me on to your third question, and the answer to that is what we don't want to become is just a hub for all the other networks. That is not our desire. There's Path, the network itself, and then if there are people who would like to share to other networks that they're on, we have no issues with that, but what we don't want to do is just be a layer for all other social networks, because we believe what we're doing is very different than everyone else what they're doing, and it's close, it's private, it's for your family and friends, and we don't want to just be lumbered with, okay, it's just an app on top of an app as a gateway. That's what we have no intention of becoming a gateway.
Next question here. Yeah. Raise your hand so they can see you. It's coming. The mic is coming.
Hi there. So I totally get that you're that Path. I'm a Path user myself, and I think it's a beautiful app. I totally get that it's for family and friends. But the problem I have with it right now is that the only people using it are early adopters, and so the people who are trying to friend me on Path, who I want to be my family and friends, are just the people that
are people who you probably wouldn't want.
People I wouldn't want to be within my Path network.
So I think this is a natural problem that a lot of social networks have. With us, we probably have it more so because there isn't the spammy effect where you're spamming hundreds of people, and secondly, you want to keep it close. So I suffer from this myself. I'm sure Loic suffers from it. A few other people suffer from it. But it's a gradual stage. If you look back to Facebook 7 years ago, or however long it was, you look back to LinkedIn, this is just how the progression happens. What is interesting is the mainstream media are now becoming far more aware and writing about products such as ours, which allows us to get into the end user's visibility very early on, rather than, the only way I can explain it, John Smith, who lives in Hertfordshire, probably doesn't read TechCrunch or All Things D. He reads the Evening Standard or the Metro, and we are seeing that mainstream adoption taking place. And it'll take time, but we have time. We're really not in any rush to go. We've got 10 million users next week, so it's a natural evolvement. But what will happen is the network quality will be far better. So
there's no one here.
So I'm curious, in some of these integrations, particularly Facebook, have you gotten any pushback from them in terms of utilizing their network to invite people in, or any of the other integrations you've done, since you could potentially be seen as a competitor?
None whatsoever. I mean, we just play by their rules in the normal environment. There's a number of Facebook employees at Path. Dave Morin, who's the co-founder, was involved in the platform team there. He has a great relationship with Mark Zuckerberg. So yeah, so there isn't any drama there as such.
And I can see Henri Moissinac, who is actually in the mobile team of Facebook, right behind that person here. Henri, would you like to comment on what do you think of the Path app? Here is Henri Boissinac from. Tell me what you're doing now at Facebook. Can we put some light on Henri? You like that, right? I'm doing that to you. Now keep talking.
I work on special projects.
But you're on the mobile team of Facebook, right?
I think the past experience, actually the application is beautiful, very inspiring. We have a lot of people in Menlo Park that love to use it every day. Actually, we are trying to copy you now.
So Facebook is copying Path.
We'll take that as a compliment.
See?
Thank you.
This is awesome.
And that's full credit to our design. I mean, the team is very, very focused on design, and design comes above design and product, right? So rather than going for the growth, and I hope that will end up being the end result is a beautiful product which people love and tell other people to use.
I love it so much that they write you an acquisition offer. Henri, you would like to comment about that, maybe?
Special projects normally don't do M&A.
Oh, okay.
We're not given any money.
Any more questions? Last one here, and then we'll move on.
So it's great having a network for family and friends. And when I'm putting all my data in, my private data, I'm asking always, where's the business case? So how you will make money with my data or advertising, or will you charging me some dollars in 1 year when I'm used to use it? So what's the case?
So firstly, I have to say every one of my business has been very revenue focused, and I've never raised VC money. So, then I go to Spotify, which was, hey, let's give the world free music, or let's stand there giving them £5 notes. And then there's Path. What is pretty obvious is you need scale in this business. So us going to somewhere with 1 million users doesn't really result in any BD activity. It doesn't really result in anything else. Advertising, again, I can't ever say it won't happen, but the network that we've built is that private that I would personally be disappointed if we started serving ads in there. And I know the management themselves have mentioned that. So then there's the growth angle, but then I think, we're making some revenue, minimal revenue from the lenses, but that's just a test case. What will end up happening is we're very focused on revenue because, we have investors' money and we have our own money, and I myself am an investor.
What's the valuation, the latest valuation?
I think the last public valuation figures being floated out, they were around 250 million.
250 million.
Yeah. So
that's cheap for no revenue. Like Instagram got $1 billion.
Yeah, well,
you can do better.
We'll try with revenue. So I think the focus right now is on growth, then engagement and revenue. And I know really this sounds like a cop-out question because I often sit in the audience and the guy on the stage is like, yeah, we're focused on growth. But really that's the case. And we've got amazing VCs who believe in the mobile story. If you look at Mary Meeker's report, 2014 likelihood is mobile browsing is going to beat web browsing. If you also look at monetizing mobile right now or 2 years ago, it's very different to what is actually happening. Facebook have just started testing mobile advertising. So for us, advertising probably isn't the route to go, but we are very focused on revenue and very focused on the fact that we need to get to a stage where there is revenue, but relevant revenue for the user.
And with Instagram, you're really, and Mary Meeker said that, one of the 2 apps which are seen as the best apps showing the...
And Instagram's an amazing app, and Kevin Systrom's an amazing entrepreneur.
Great. Thank you so much, Shaq.
Thank you.
Thank you.